let's talk about January of 2026. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is going to be the reading wrap-up for January of this year. Now, I have bought a handy little notebook with me because at the beginning of the year, I decided that I was going to keep a reading journal. Can you tell what my favorite color is? Because I wanted to move away from putting everything on my phone. So previously I would write notes on my phone about the book, and then I just got really lackluster with that. Not because I didn't want to do it, because I was just sick of being on my phone. I don't annotate books, but I do like to take a few notes while I'm reading something, just so I don't forget everything by the time that the book ends. So I thought we'd start off with the stats that I have for January, what I was planning to read, what I actually read, and then go through the books that I read. So we'll find January's page. Should I have annotated this so they had handy tabs? Absolutely. Did I do that? I did not. But if you give me one moment, I'll find January's page. Okay, we have January's page. It's insane, my writing is shit. Don't look at it too closely. So I planned to read 4 things with 3 potential caveats in here. I read 3 of those. I did not read one. Sorry, of the things I planned to read, I did read 3. I did not read one, and I did read one of the books that could have been a ring in, and I also not mood read, but I had a book come in for a discussion that I was having, so I ended up picking up that. I did 1 on audio, 2 ebooks, and 2 physically. I hauled 3 books and unhauled 0 books, and I did not use the library. I did, however, do 2 beta reads. So one was about 36,000 words, and one was about 100,000 words for different projects, and that I'm counting towards not my reading goal, like books that I can talk about, but just they are things that I read during the month. I owned 2 of these. I had to buy 1, and I borrowed 2 from either NetGalley or, in this case, my housemate who had 1 of them. So we're going to jump into the books that I read for the month. We're going to start off with a book called The Phoenix Empress. This is by K. Arsenault Rivera, and this is book 2 in the series that I cannot remember what it was called, the Ascendant series, I think. I'll put the cover up here. Anyway, after book 1, which was The Tiger's Daughter, I had such high hopes of book 2. I had heard mixed things about book 1 going in, and I had a fantastic time with it. It ended up being a 5-star read for me. Book 2, let's just say I'm happy that I got this for free for a subscription service on Kobo, because I did not enjoy this one nearly as much. I am not going to say it was a bad book by any means, but it definitely did not live up to the hype that book 1 set up for it to be. It started in a similar way, which is a story told in retrospect between 2 young women, Shifali and Oshizuka, and it just sort of fell apart and felt like there was a lot of band-aid plot points which were trying to be pulled out of the woodwork to make this story longer. And I don't normally mind a middle book syndrome because this is a trilogy. I actually generally enjoy what other people class to be middle book syndrome, where we are getting more world building and we're traveling and it sort of meanders a little bit. This, I felt, just sort of lost me, and I ended up giving this a 2.5-star read. This was a 2.5-star read, I should say. For me personally, the main thing that lost me is that we had another plot point which sort of makes sense for Shifali's character, and it's a book 2, so I'm going to keep this relatively vague. And it made sense for the book, but it was just so focused on this particular plot point where we almost forgot the overarching plot of book 1, or I didn't feel like it had the emotional stakes that it needed to, and towards the end it really just felt like we were grasping at straws to be like, oh, we have a book 3, we need some things to tie up, let's bring that in. So I don't know whether this is the case of it should have been a duology rather than a trilogy. I'm not sure. I have actually gone and purchased the 3rd book. I bought that in February. It's part of the hauls for February, to see, like, I'm committed to finishing the series. I just don't know where it will land. If I don't love the 3rd book either, then I will donate that one and just keep the 1st book, and that's okay. I had a really good time with the 1st book. I probably would reread that one. And the next one I have is a NetGalley e-arc. This is The Day of Breath by Darby Cox. Now, NetGalley and I, we have an interesting relationship. I've not actively not liked anything anything that I've picked up from NetGalley thus far, but nothing has cracked the 4-star read. This also did not crack 4 stars, but I am determined. I'm going to try and do one NetGalley e-arc a month this year to find something that cracks a 4-star read. And eventually, once I build my ratings up on NetGalley, the aim is to try and like seek out indie books on there to help with ratings and reviews. I think my March one is a small press, so I count that as indie. Anyway, this is about Day of Breath by Darby Cox. This is a story following Ollie, who has been deemed the champion of the town that I cannot remember the name of. The champion has to go and live in a cottage away from the entire city, the entire town, to protect them from what's called the Rive, which is a strip of like this red portal-like light where demons can come through. The champion is meant to be the sole person. It is their sole responsibility to make sure nothing comes to the town, and then they can all live peacefully. Ollie's chosen at a very young age, and we see her start this journey being chosen, and then the chapter 1, I'm not sure if it was a prologue, chapter 1 or chapter 2, it's present day, it's 10 years later. She is the longest standing champion that they have had. The prince of the town, again, I cannot remember his name, so sorry for the vagueness here, decides that, hey, there's this one day a year, the Day of Breath, where the Rive closes, and they want to bring the champion into the town to be a celebration of this champion, to say thank you for all the things that she has done. And Ollie's just like, dude, I get one day a year to like bathe and sleep, so I'm going to be doing that instead. Anyway, she gets convinced to go into the town by this prince who's very charming, and all hell breaks loose when she gets there. Nothing is quite as it seems. There is some like religious-ish machinations happening in the background from an order. These people that are meant to like protect them and serve them. There's some dark things that are happening there, and I won't go too much more into it. I genuinely had a pretty decent time with this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I really, really loved the portrayal of the neurodivergence of our main character, and I go into that a little bit more in my reading vlog for January, so if you want to check that out, you are more than welcome to. I had a decent time. I am most of the way through my February NetGalley e-arc at the time of filming, and it's probably also going to be about a 3.5 star read. So we haven't cracked the 4-star yet, but I'm determined to get there this year. The next one that I picked up was a book for my Buy Plus book community here in Perth. We have a book club bi-monthly. It's in the title. And they picked Iron Widow by Shiran J. Zhao. This was interesting. And again, I go into this one a little bit more in my blog, but we are following Zetian, who is a young girl whose sister was sacrificed to the pilots of the chrysalises. Now, the chrysalises are these like big robot-like things which are used to keep the Hunduns at bay. So basically, the Hunduns came in, destroyed everything. We now need these big robots to keep them at bay to make sure that people can continue living. To power these particular robots, we have one male pilot and a female pilot concubine, who the male pilot will basically steal their chi. They die a lot of the time, and our main character's sister was sacrificed to these pilots. She died via a pilot. So Zetian, once she turns 18, says, that's it, fuck you, I'm going in, and I'm going to seek revenge on the person who killed my sister, or Jeje, which is big sister in Pinyin. So once she goes in, she realizes that she is more powerful than even she thought. She knew she was more powerful than some, because it's a very patriarchal society, and they tend to pick women who are weaker because they want men to be built up. And she realizes she's super powerful, and then she just dives in. She's in there for the War of the Hunduns, and she wants to, once she realizes that she is more powerful, she thinks, maybe I can stop this for other women going forward. This is pegged as YA. It is super violent for YA. I loved the themes here. I loved the genre mashup, but the execution didn't work for me as well as I would have liked it to. What I will say, particularly now having that book club discussion, is that what I appreciate Zetian in doing, the main character, she always stays true to herself. She is an 18-year-old. She is self-obsessed. She is quite privileged, really, in how she's been brought up, even though in her eyes she isn't. And she does act in accordance to her own sort of doctrine the whole way through, which I do appreciate. Like I said, I appreciate the themes. I think potentially what frustrated me the most was that she went in as this ultimate like feminist tale, but then often acted against the betterment of other women in the story, which was quite frustrating. And that is a character flaw. That's the way that she was written. I'm not sure where book 2 goes. I enjoyed the writing style of this. I am willing to give book 2 a go, and I would absolutely read anything this author puts out in the adult sphere as well. So this was another 3.5 star for me, enough for me to go, okay, I'll read book 2, but so far the month has been a little mid. Bring in the book of the month, and I will do a full review once I write it. I'm already late for December's, which is coming out next week, I promise, but January's book of the month was Cephrael's Hand by Melissa McPhail. Now, my friend Mark has been begging me to read this series since we started talking, and I'm pretty sure that was the first year that I was on BookTube, so it's been a good 4-ish years now. This is a series which is to date incomplete. The reason being is that the author has unfortunately passed before writing the ending. I believe that her daughters are in the process of writing a final book to the series, so it does conclude, but there is no date on when that will happen. Mark did assure me that you can go into these, they're just good on their own, sort of like a Game of Thrones situation, and I haven't read that, nor do I believe we're ever getting that last book, but I don't know, maybe George R.R. Martin will prove me wrong. I went into Cephrael's Hand relatively blind. All I knew is what Mark likes to read, which is things like Wheel of Time, Janny Wirtz, used to be Malazan, not so much nowadays, but those sort of things. I'm like, okay, well, I trust this to be a good story. This was fantastic. This is an epic fantasy. There are so many characters. At the heart of it, we have two separate storylines. One is Troll of the Tides, who was rescued about 5 years prior to this and has no memory of who he is. He's grown up again in the desert lands and has been sort of roaming with them, and now he wants to go on a quest to find out who he was. On the other side of that, we have Prince Ian, who is suspected of being one of the adept and has some sort of the magic system called the Allay inside of him, and people don't like that, and we don't really get to understand why that is until we get into the book, and I don't want to give spoilers away here. Between those two sides, as they sort of working their way in their parts of the world, we have a lot of side characters, sort of very Eye of the World-esque, and I found all of these side characters super endearing. My favourite has got to be Tanis, but I also liked a pirate-like character called Carrion, and that character sort of type I don't generally enjoy, but I had a very good time with him. Trell I really liked. I liked Alaneri, where there's a character that comes in towards the end of book 1 and is part of book 2 called Yara. I don't think she's in there for very long, but she was also super endearing. It's well written, it's omniscient narration, so you are in everyone's head at all time as they're sort of going through the story, but this was fantastic. Go into this knowing that it's very much a setup book, and book 2 does blow the characters and the storyline sort of wide open. I spoiler alert, am reading that one already for February. So this is fantastic. I probably need some more coherent thoughts to be able to do a book of the month review, but I had a great time with this. I gave this one, I think, 4.5 stars. And the last one that I picked up, which I technically finished in February, but I'm going to put it in here anyway, is Dune by Frank Herbert. It is still one of my favorite sci-fi series. I know that's so cliche, but it is really good. And I reread this, and this was not on my rereading list. It was not on my series to start list this year, but I had a discussion with Livia J. Elliott on her books podcast called Books Undone, where we discussed the first book. I believe we will be doing the second book, which is Dune Messiah, sometime mid-year, and I had a good time with this. I do dog ear. I'm so sorry. My life is chaotic, and I understand people don't like that. Actually, my life is very organized and structured. My book life in this room is chaotic, and that's basically the only thing that's chaotic. Anyway, had a good time with this. I'm not going to go into any particular depth. It is the story of the Atreides and the Harkonnens and the fight for power. It's super thematic if we're looking at religious undertones. We're looking at the idea of power and how much is, too much. Should anyone be a martyr, etc. and so forth. My favorite line from this, which I do mention in the the podcast is a feint within a feint within a feint. This story holds so much more than surface level, and for that reason, it is one of my favorites. So that was the reading month. I can't talk too much about the betas that I did. One is a novella, which is sci-fi. I had a good time with that, and the other is it was pegged as adult. I read it a little bit younger, which was sort of a fantasy, which was really interesting. Like, I liked the guild aspect of it. So we have guilds that are sort of warring for each other. There's sort of like a battle that happens. There's training montages. So think sort of coming of age, but coming of age as a group. And, you know, it's a story that I think younger audiences would appreciate. That was my reading for the month of January. What did you pick up? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this content, give one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.